and welcome back to Creepy Cassetti. And if you watched my Ashton Park video, you're probably like, why did the name change? Found out there's actually already a channel called Creepy Spaghetti, so here we are. But then, doesn't matter because this is still your place for horror in reality and beyond. I am D, and if this is your kind of content, please hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification bell so you'll know every time I drop a new horror-related video. Today we are going to be talking Victorian post-mortem photography. Honestly, guys, the Victorians were very interesting when it comes to their mourning processes, so I can do an entire series on just Victorian mourning processes. If that is something that you are interested in, please let me know in the comments below. And as always, my description box will actually include the links from where I got my information, and so I do encourage you to take a look for yourself. And again, enjoy the video. Today we are talking post-mortem photography and how you can spot the authenticity in a sea of fakes. So let's get right into it. No one does mourning like the Victorians. As a matter of fact, people in the Victorian era lived among constant symbols of death known as memento mori. Directly translated from Latin, memento mori means remember you will die. The Victorians lived during an era when diseases like cholera and scarlet fever were rampant, an era when children passed on long before their parents. It only makes sense that people would find new ways to cope. With the invention of the daguerreotype, people were now able to memorialize their family members in a more permanent way that was less expensive than having someone paint a portrait. There was a time not that far back in history where taking a picture was much more laborious process than simply pulling out your smartphone. After all, the first camera was not created until August 19th in 1839, and at that time, it wasn't even called a camera. It was called a daguerreotype. Oxford Dictionary explains that the daguerreotype is a photo taken by an early photographic process employing an iodine sensitized silver plate and mercury vapor. Named after its inventor, Louis Jacques Mondet Daguerre, when the daguerreotype was first created, exposure times for portraits could take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, and by the 1850s, the exposure time was down between 3 and 8 seconds. For many Victorians, their first picture would not be taken until after they had already made their transition out of this existence. Postmortem photography was meant to be an extension of the mourning process and was used to be a comfort to the remaining family members. There are many postmortem photos that have lasted and made it into internet archives. However, if you don't know much about postmortem photography practices, it's easy for you to be fooled by old pictures of living subjects. The use of things like posing stands and hidden mothers seem to exacerbate the issue of finding faux pictures online. Posing racks were often used to keep the subject still during the long exposure times. And if you've ever stayed in one position for any uncomfortable length of time, you understand how tiring it can be to hold that pose. In fact, most posing stands were not counterbalanced, so it would be impossible for a dead person to stay upright with only the use of the stand. If it takes an act of God to keep any group of people still long enough to take a photo, it's kids. To keep kids still long enough to take a picture, mothers would hide behind black cloth to keep the attention on the subject, their child, but while also still keeping them in a position where the camera would not be blurred by any sort of movement that'll occur, and we know that kids never stop moving. If you are seeing a posing stand or hidden mother in a photo, there's a good chance that individual was very much alive. It was much easier at the time to take a picture of a dead person because there would be no chance for blurring by the natural movements of the living. Adding to the issue of fake postmortem photos was how the early photography process would sometimes distort colors, like making blue eyes appear white. The rule of thumb with postmortem photos is that if the subject looks alive, they probably were very much alive when the picture was taken. Decay was quick to set in, and this was before embalming became a regular practice. Most of the time, Victorians were not trying to make their dead look alive. Instead, they aimed to show the peace that comes with passing on. The dead would simply be posed in their coffins or on their deathbeds. Sometimes symbols of death would occasionally surround the corpse, such as flowers, clocks, or hourglasses, or in the case of children, their favorite stuffed animals. house. During Victorian times, mourning rituals were handled within the home. It is said that this is how the term living room got its name, because the front of the house is where the loved ones would gather and memorialize their deceased loved ones, and in the back of the house is where the body would lie. Families would prepare the body by fixing the deceased's hair, dressing the body. Occasionally, photographers would put a bit of makeup or tint on the cheeks to give a livelier appearance. And at times, a photographer may even open the eyes. But this was something that had to be done quickly, as any later on, and the eyes would quickly start to lose focus or do that sort of glazing over, as almost like a white veil coming over the irises. So let me know in the comments below, did you learn something interesting today? Are there any facts you would have added to this video? I'd love to hear what you have to say, and as always, I hope you all have a wonderful day. I am Dee, and this is Creepy Cassetti.